My mother's voice over the phone was so casual, as if she were commenting on the weather. "It's just better if you don't come, Clara." I stopped swirling the spoon in my mug of tea. "What? Mom, what are you talking about?" In the background, I could hear a peal of laughter. My sister, Sophie. They were probably trying on veils. "The wedding, darling, Sophie's wedding." She sighed as if I were being deliberately obtuse. "We've all just decided. It would be better if you weren't in attendance." My hand clenched around the phone, my knuckles going white. "Why?" Her voice went from breezy to sharp, but it was still coated in a layer of sugar. "You know how you can be. You'd spoil the mood." A laugh escaped my lips, but it was a short, sharp, ugly sound. I was the family's uncomfortable truth, the one who never quite fit into their flawless holiday portraits. They were building a perfect day, and it had no room for the imperfect daughter. "Okay, Mom," I said, my voice hollow. I ended the call. I stood there, in the silence of my own kitchen, and I felt myself begin to fade. They had finally managed to erase me completely. Fine. If I wasn't going to be a character in their story, then I would write my own. I would write a story so vast and brilliant that the entire world would have to read it. And I would never, ever let them hold the pen again. Before we get into it, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from around the globe. It's always amazing to see how far these stories travel. From the outside, we looked like the quintessential American dream. We lived in a sprawling colonial with white columns on the most prestigious lane in our suburban town. My father, Richard Vance, was a senior partner at his law firm. My mother, Eleanor Vance, was the president of the local philanthropic society. Sunday brunch was a standing reservation at the country club. Every December, my mother would stage our annual holiday card photo. She dictated the wardrobe, of course. One year, it was coordinated cashmere in a deep burgundy. The next, it was crisp navy and winter white. We'd have to pose by the grand stone fireplace, all of us smiling on cue. My father would be beaming with pride. My mother would be fussing over my younger sister, Sophie, adjusting a stray strand of her perfect blonde hair. I was always positioned at the very end. When the printed cards arrived, my mother would frame the best shot. "Look," she'd say to visitors, gesturing at the mantelpiece, "my beautiful family." In those pictures, I looked beautiful too. I was smiling after all, but I always felt like I was wearing the wrong shade of burgundy. Inside that house, things were not as they seemed. Inside, I was the resident ghost. Our home wasn't a place of shouting matches. There were no raised voices. There was only silence, and that silence was a crushing weight. It was the sound of everything that was never said. It was the sound of my mother's constant, unspoken disapproval. My mother, Eleanor, worshipped at the altar of appearances. Every single thing had to be just right. Her rose garden, her wardrobe, her children. If something was out of place, if I, for instance, spilled a drop of iced tea at the club or wore a band t-shirt she deemed unladylike, she wouldn't raise her voice. She would just become terrifyingly quiet. She'd fix me with a look, her eyes turning to ice. "Clara," she would say, her voice a cold whisper, "what will people think?" My father, for his part, adored my mother. He was a decent man, I suppose. He was gentle, but he was also spineless. He was a workaholic. When he was home, his primary function was to keep my mother happy. And keeping Eleanor happy meant validating her every opinion. I remember winning a regional poetry slam in my junior year of high school. I was ecstatic. I came home clutching the trophy and the certificate. "Dad, look!" I said, holding it up for him to see. He smiled, but his eyes were already glancing toward my mother, who was engrossed in a catalog. That's fantastic, honey. You're a real wordsmith. Eleanor, did you see? Clara won her poetry thing. My mother looked up, her expression utterly blank. She didn't smile. Oh, that's nice. Did you remember to put the recycling bins out? The truck comes early tomorrow. The trophy suddenly felt foolish and heavy in my hands. I took it up to my room and shoved it in the back of my closet. I never looked at it again. And then there was Sophie. Sophie was the sun around which our family orbited. She was 2 years my junior, blonde, effervescent, and effortlessly charming. She was everything my mother wanted in a daughter. She was everything I wasn't. I was introspective. I preferred the company of books. My brown hair was usually just tied back in a messy bun. Sophie was the head of the dance team. She had a laugh that could make a whole room turn and smile. My parents worshipped her. They never missed a single one of her recitals, always clapping the loudest. When Sophie brought home a C on a report card, my father would laugh and say, "Well, C is for charming." When I brought home a straight A report, my mother would ask, "No A pluses? Did you get distracted in class?" I learned the rules very early on. In our house, silence was the currency you paid for affection. To be loved, you had to be quiet. You had to blend in. You had to be as flawless as the holiday photos. If you were messy, if you were complicated, if you had problems, you were swept under the rug. You were ignored. I was the problem. I was the one who was too intense. I was the one who was overly sensitive. Why can't you just be more like your sister? My mother would sigh, watching Sophie gossip and laugh with her friends by the pool while I sat in the shade with a novel. I didn't know how to be like Sophie. I only knew how to be myself, and myself was never quite right. Still, I didn't stop trying. I thought if I just worked harder, if I became successful enough, if I was quiet enough, they would finally see me. I attended every family gathering. I brought thoughtful gifts for birthdays and holidays. I landed a great job in brand strategy after graduating. I moved into a chic apartment in the city. I tried so hard to be the daughter they could be proud of. I'd show up for Christmas, my arms full of presents. I'd spend weeks finding the perfect silk Hermes scarf for my mother, the latest high-tech driver for my dad's golf set, the trendy handbag Sophie had been eyeing. "Oh," my mother would say, unwrapping the scarf. "How interesting." She'd fold it perfectly back into its box. I would never see it again. Sophie would open her purse, let out a shriek of delight, and give me a big hug. "Thank you, Clara. I'm obsessed." 2 days later, I'd see her carrying the old one my mother had bought her last season. I just kept showing up. I kept smiling for the pictures. I kept thinking that my effort could somehow bridge the gap, whatever it was that made me so different. I thought if I could perfect the exterior, they might just forget about the parts of me they found so inconvenient. It never worked. I was still the ghost. I was still the girl at the end of the line, in the wrong shade of burgundy, standing just outside the warm glow of the fireplace. When Sophie got engaged, our house erupted in a flurry of champagne and lace. My mother was in her element. This was the moment she had been preparing for her entire life. She wasn't just planning a wedding. She was producing a masterpiece. "It's going to be the social event of the year," she'd tell her friends at the club. I was genuinely happy for Sophie. I truly was. She and her fiancé, a pleasant guy from a good family, seemed perfect for each other. And I did love my sister. I thought, maybe this is my chance. A wedding is all about family. Maybe this is where I can finally find my place. I was so naive. I work in marketing. I'm an organizer. I'm a planner. Mom, I said a week after the engagement party I had helped cater. I was looking into photographers, and I have a few suggestions. There's a brilliant artist I know who does these incredible candids. I had a whole presentation ready on my tablet. My mother was at her antique writing desk, addressing invitations with a calligraphy pen. She didn't bother to look up. Thank you, Clara, but that's already been arranged. I waited. Oh, who did you go with? A contact of mine from New York. It's all handled. Oh, okay. I stood there, feeling foolish. Well, what about the band? I know you want a jazz ensemble for the reception. I have a list of… Handled, she said, pressing a wax seal onto an envelope. Menu tastings? Sophie and I are doing that this Saturday. I could join, I offered, my voice already sounding smaller. I can take the morning off work. She finally glanced up, her eyes empty of any emotion. Clara, it's just a mother-daughter thing. You're so swamped with your career. We don't want to be a bother. I wasn't swamped. She knew that. It's no bother at all, I insisted. I'd love to help. That's sweet. She turned back to her envelopes. But we're fine. It's all handled. It's all handled. That was the new refrain. It was the new polite way of saying, you are not welcome here. I tried to approach Sophie directly. I called her. Hey, Soph. Just wanted to see if you needed a hand with the bachelorette party planning. I know you have a huge circle of friends. Oh, hi, Clara, she said, sounding distracted. No, we sorted that out last week. Mom found the perfect planner. Don't worry about it. I wasn't worrying, I said. I just wanted to be a part of it. I know, it's just… Mom is on a roll. It's easier to just let her handle it. You know how she gets. Yes, I did. I knew exactly how she gets. She gets what she wants. And what she didn't want, apparently, was me. The final, quietest cut came a week later. My phone buzzed with a text from my cousin, Amelia. Amelia lived across the country but was one of Sophie's bridesmaids. The text was simply a photo, a screenshot. At the top of the screenshot was the name of a group chat, Sophie's Wedding Bells. Beneath it, I saw a long list of participants, my mother, my aunt, all my female cousins, Sophie, and her entire bridal party. Even my father's name was on the list. The message Amelia had screenshotted was from my mother. Logistics update, everyone. The shuttle from the hotel to the chapel will depart at 3 p.m. Monsieur Sharp. Richard, you're on champagne duty. I scanned the list of names in the chat again, my heart sinking. Everyone, every single relevant family member was in that chat, except for me. My fingers felt like ice as I typed back to Amelia. Looks like fun. A minute later, she replied, OMG, Clara, I am so sorry. I thought you were in this chat. I meant to send this to my mom. I stared at the screen. I thought you were in this chat. I didn't reply to Amelia. I just turned my phone off. A group chat. It was such a small, stupid thing, but it was a line drawn in the digital sand. It was a wall, and I was on the wrong side of it. I waited until my breathing felt steady. Then I called my mother. Hey, Mom, quick question. I tried to sound nonchalant. I think Amelia accidentally sent me a screenshot of a family chat for the wedding. Did you forget to add me? There was a pause, a long, cold one. Oh, that, she said, her voice suddenly light and airy. Darling, don't be silly. That's not a family chat. It's not? No, it's just for logistics, for the people directly involved in the wedding party. Dad's in it, I pointed out. Aunt Carol is in it. They aren't in the wedding party. The airy tone vanished. Her voice turned brittle. Clara, what is the point of this conversation? It's for logistics. It's for people who are involved. You don't need to be bothered with all the little details. I wanted to be involved, I whispered. Well, it's a bit late for that, she snapped. Everything is handled. The pain of that was nothing compared to what came next. The invitations were works of art, heavy cream-colored cardstock with embossed gold lettering. My mother had hired a renowned calligrapher. I knew this because my best friend Maya showed me hers. Clara, this thing is intense. It feels like a royal decree, she'd said, holding it up to the light. Maya was invited. My parents had known her since we were children. Of course she was invited. My cousins were posting their invitations on social media. So honored. Can't wait to celebrate. My aunt called me to discuss her outfit. Are you thinking of wearing green, Clara? I think you should wear green. It complements your eyes. I haven't decided yet, Aunt Carol, I lied. A week passed. My mailbox contained nothing but junk mail and bills. Another week. I told myself mine was lost in the mail. I told myself my mother was planning to give it to me in person. I told myself 100 tiny, pathetic lies. My father called me. Hey, Clara Bear, how's work? It's fine, Dad. How are you? Oh, you know, your mother's going crazy with this wedding. He chuckled. I'll be glad when it's all over. Anyway, just calling to check in. Dad, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I haven't received my invitation yet. Silence on the other end. Oh, he said finally. Well, I'm sure your mother has it set aside for you. You know her. She's got a whole system. Yeah, I said. A system. I'll mention it to her, he said, sounding anxious. Gotta run, honey. Love you. He hung up. He never mentioned it to her. Or if he did, it made no difference. I couldn't live in that silent uncertainty anymore. I couldn't keep checking the empty mailbox. I had to know. I had to hear the words. I called my mother, my hands trembling. Hi, Mom. It's me. Clara, I'm very busy. What is it? I was calling about the invitation for the wedding. I still haven't received mine. A long, dramatic sigh. The sound of her profound inconvenience. Oh, Clara, I'm glad you called. I've been meaning to talk to you about that. My stomach plummeted. We were just looking at the final numbers, she said, her voice adopting that falsely gentle tone she used when she was about to dismiss the gardener. We were looking at the numbers, and the venue is just... They're incredibly strict, darling. We're over our capacity. I couldn't speak. The venue is very strict, she repeated as if I were slow. And it's just so expensive per head. We had to make some very difficult cuts. I waited. I had to make her say it. And, well, we just assumed you'd understand. There just isn't a seat for you. A seat. I was her daughter. I was Sophie's sister. I wasn't some distant relative's plus one. There isn't a seat, I repeated, my voice flat. Exactly. I knew you'd understand. You're always so pragmatic. She sounded relieved. It's for the best, really. It's mostly just, Sophie's friends. And our friends. You wouldn't really know anyone. I know you, I said. I know Dad. I know Sophie. Another sigh. Clara, please don't make this difficult. The decision has been made. I have to go. She hung up. I stood frozen in my apartment for what felt like an hour. There just isn't a seat for you. She had finally done it. After 30 years of my trying, I was finally formally no longer a member of the family. A week later, I did something I still don't quite understand. I needed to see it. I needed to see the family that had no seat for me. It was a Saturday. I knew they were having the final dress fitting at the house. I bought a wedding gift for Sophie, a small, exquisite crystal vase. I wrapped it in beautiful white paper. I was playing a part. I was pretending to be a normal sister, dropping off a normal gift for a normal wedding. I drove to their house, my former house, the one with the white columns. The driveway was full of expensive cars, the Mercedes, the Lexus. I heard the sound of laughter before I even reached the front door. I still had my old key. I don't know why I used it. I should have rung the bell. But I slid the key into the lock. It turned. I stepped into the foyer. The living room was flooded with afternoon light and shimmering white fabric. Sophie was standing on a small pedestal in her wedding gown. It was magnificent. She looked like a fairy tale princess. My mother was on the sofa, dabbing at her eyes with a silk handkerchief, crying soft, joyful tears. My Aunt Carol was there. 3 of Sophie's friends, the bridesmaids, were sipping champagne. My father stood in the corner, holding a flute, beaming. They were all laughing, their faces turned towards Sophie in adoration. I stood in the doorway, holding my small, perfectly wrapped gift. The laughter died. One by one, their heads turned. Sophie's hands flew to her mouth. My father suddenly found his shoes fascinating. My mother's happy tears vanished. Her face hardened into a mask of fury. She stood up. She walked toward me. She didn't touch me. She walked right past me into the foyer, effectively backing me toward the door. She spoke in a vicious whisper. "Clara, what are you doing here? You cannot be here." I held up the gift. I brought this for Sophie. My mother's eyes were not sad. They were cold steel. "You need to leave," she hissed. "You are making this unbearable." "Why?" I asked, and I hated that my voice was breaking. "Mom, just tell me why. Just tell me the real reason." She glanced back into the living room, at her perfect daughter, in her perfect dress, in the perfect afternoon light. Then she looked back at me. The daughter who didn't belong. "Because you'd spoil the mood," she whispered. The words were like tiny shards of glass. "You always do. You're too morose. You're too much. This is Sophie's day. This is my day. This is our perfect day, and you will not ruin it." She snatched the gift from my hand without even looking at it and set it on a side table. "Go home, Clara." I looked past her. Sophie was still on the pedestal watching us, her face a blank mask. She didn't move. She didn't say a single word. My father was staring intently into his champagne glass. No one met my eye. I turned around. I walked out the door. I got into my car. I sat in the driveway for a long moment, looking at the big white house. My mother was right. I wasn't sad. I was nothing. I was utterly clear. That one sentence. "You'd spoil the mood." That sentence didn't just break my heart. It severed the last thread of whatever family I thought I had. That sentence set me free. I didn't cry. I just drove. I have no idea for how long. The numbness was a blanket. It was cold, but it was protective. My mother's words echoed in my head. "You'd spoil the mood. You'd spoil the mood." She didn't say, "I'm sorry." She didn't say, "It's complicated." She said, "You are the problem." I ended up at Maya's apartment, the only sanctuary I could think of. She opened the door, and her cheerful smile immediately vanished. She saw my face. She saw the void. She didn't ask what was wrong. She just opened the door wider, gently took my keys from my limp hand, and led me inside. She sat me down on her comfortable, slightly worn-out green sofa. She went to her kitchen. I heard the clink of ice against glass. She came back and handed me a tumbler. It was bourbon. "Drink," she commanded. I drank. It burned a path down my throat. It was the first thing I had felt in hours. I told her everything. The empty mailbox. The phone call where my mother said there wasn't a seat, the drive to the house, the dress, the champagne. And then I told her the whisper. She said I'd spoil the mood. I said the words out loud, and that's when I finally broke. The tears weren't loud or dramatic. I just sat on Maya's green sofa clutching her bourbon and cried silent, hot tears. I cried for the little girl at the end of the holiday photo line. I cried for the girl who hid her poetry trophy in a closet. I cried for the woman holding a wedding gift in a foyer, being told she was too much. Maya didn't try to fix it. She just sat beside me, put her arm around my shoulders, and let me shatter. When the tears finally subsided, I felt completely hollowed out. I hate them, I whispered, my voice raw. Maya, I hate them. Good, she said, giving my shoulder a firm squeeze. That's a starting point. I want to get revenge, I said. I want to crash the wedding. I want to stand up and tell everyone what they did. I want to plaster it all over the internet. I want to burn their perfect little world to the ground. Maya was quiet for a moment. She took the now empty glass from my hand. You could, she said, her voice thoughtful. You absolutely could do that. You could light that match and walk away like a movie star. I will, I said, sitting up straighter. The bourbon and the rage were a potent combination. But Clara... She turned to face me, her eyes sharp and clear. Think about it. What does your mother expect from you right now? I blinked. What? What does she expect? She just told you. She expects you to be morose. She expects you to be too much. She expects you to spoil the mood. If you crash that wedding, if you show up screaming and making a scene, you're just giving her exactly what she wants. You're proving her right. My blood ran cold. She was right. If I did that, I would become exactly who she'd always painted me to be. The problem daughter, the difficult one. She'd tell everyone, see, this is why we didn't want her here. She's unstable. And everyone would nod sympathetically and pat her on the back. And I would be the villain. Again. They've already written that script for me, I said, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. Exactly, Maya said. They've already cast you as the bad guy. She leaned in closer. So don't play the part. Don't get revenge, Clara. Revenge is small. It's their size. She smiled, a slow, brilliant smile. Get bigger. Don't burn their world down. Build your own empire and make them watch. Her words were like a lightning strike, not revenge, reinvention. Revenge was about them. It was about trying to make them feel the pain that I felt. Reinvention. That was about me. It wasn't about destroying their house. It was about building my own. A castle. Make them watch, I repeated. I thought about Liam, my fiancé. Liam, who I had met through a work project. Liam, who was kind and grounded and who saw me, really saw me. Liam, who had proposed to me on a random Tuesday night in our kitchen because he said he just couldn't imagine waiting another day. Liam, whom my family called perfectly nice. He's very quiet, isn't he? My mother had remarked after meeting him. What she meant was, he's not wealthy. I had been dragging my feet on our own wedding plans. I had been waiting. Waiting for what? For my family to make a seat for me at their table? No, that spark of an idea wasn't a spark. It was a wildfire. I stood up from Maya's couch. I wasn't hollow anymore. I was filled with something new. It wasn't just anger, it was purpose. Clara, where are you going? Home, I said. I have to call Liam. We have a wedding to plan. Maya's smile grew even wider. Oh, damn, Clara. This is going to be epic. I walked out of her apartment, got in my car, and called Liam. He answered on the second ring. Hey, honey, is everything okay? You sound. I'm incredible, I said, and was surprised to realize it was the truth. Liam, how do you feel about getting married? I feel pretty great about it, he said with a laugh. Did you have a date in mind? I don't know about a date yet, I said, pulling out onto the street. But I know one thing. My wedding will not be small. It will not be quiet. It will not be hidden away in some stuffy country club. My wedding will not be about appearances. It will not be about who gets a seat. Liam, I said, my voice full of a strange new power. I want our wedding to be seen by the entire world. There was a brief pause. Okay, he said, his voice as calm and steady as ever. Tell me what you're thinking. I drove home, and I told him. I told him everything. I was done being the ghost. I was done being the problem. If they were going to erase me from their story, I would write my own. I would write a story so big and so bright that they would have no choice but to read it. They would have no choice but to see me, not as their victim, but as the one who got away. I walked into our apartment. Liam was on the sofa, his laptop open. Our living room was modest, but it was our sanctuary. It was the one place in the world where I didn't feel like I had to perform. He looked up as I entered. He saw my face. Clara, what happened? He snapped the laptop shut. Was it your mother? I didn't answer. I just walked over and kissed him. It wasn't a quick kiss. It was long and slow, a kiss that said, please just hold me. Please be my anchor. He held me tight. That bad, huh? Worse, I said into his shoulder. No, not worse. Final. They officially uninvited me from the wedding. He pulled back to look at me, his normally calm eyes flashing with anger. She what? She said there wasn't a seat, I said. And then I went to the house, and she told me I'd spoil the mood. Liam stood up and started pacing. He was a quiet man, but I could see the rage simmering in the way he clenched and unclenched his fists. I'm going to call her. No, my voice was firm. It surprised us both. Clara, she can't do that to you. Your father can't just let her. They did, I said, and I'm done. I'm done, Liam. I'm done being the sad girl. I'm done being the problem. He stopped pacing and looked at me. What does that mean? It means I'm not getting revenge, I said, echoing Maya's words. Revenge is what she expects. She expects me to have a meltdown. She expects me to cry and scream and prove her right. I'm not going to. I took a deep breath. I want to get married, you and me, but I don't want a small wedding. I don't want to elope. I want to build something she can't touch, something she can't ignore. I started to lay out my idea, not all of it, but the seed of it. I want a wedding that's the complete opposite of hers. Hers is small and exclusive and mean. I want ours to be big and open and for everyone. Liam watched me, listening intently. I want to use my skills, I said, the words tumbling out. All those contacts I've built, the PR firms, the designers who owe me favors. I want to build a statement. A statement, he repeated. They think I'm a failure, I said. They think I'm just their sad daughter with a nice little job. They think you're just some quiet guy they can dismiss. They're trying to erase us. I don't want to be erased. He came and took my hands in his. His were warm and steady. So what are we doing, Clara? We're planning a wedding, I said. In complete secrecy, no social media posts, no hints. We tell no one who talks to them, not my aunts, not my cousins, just us and Maya. He smiled, a slow, genuine smile. Okay, let's do it your way. Let's make it a masterpiece. He squeezed my hands. What's the first step? I had never loved him more than in that moment. That night, we didn't sleep. We opened my laptop and got to work. We didn't browse wedding blogs. We started a new folder on my desktop. Project Horizon. I know, it sounds dramatic, but that's what it felt like. First, the budget. Our wedding savings were modest. It wasn't enough, not for what I was envisioning. Liam, this is the hard part, I said. A normal wedding we could afford. This is a media campaign. So how do we fund a campaign? He asked. He wasn't scared. He was pragmatic. We don't, I said. We get sponsors, but not in a tacky influencer way. We make it about something bigger, something meaningful. I didn't have the full charity idea yet, but I knew the wedding itself couldn't be the point. The message had to be the point. My career was in high-level brand strategy. I helped global companies launch massive new initiatives. I knew the people who built websites that could handle millions of hits per second. I knew the designers who dressed A-list celebrities. I knew the publicists who could land a story on the front page of any major publication. For years, I had poured all that energy into making other people look good, into making my family look good at every holiday dinner, every country club function. Now, I was going to use it for myself. The first email went out at 2 a.m. It was to an avant-garde designer in Milan I had collaborated with once, a woman famous for her ethereal, almost impossible creations. Subject, a different kind of story. I wrote, I am not coming to you as a client. I am coming to you as a storyteller. I want to tell a story about a woman who was made to feel invisible and chose instead to become a star. I have the platform. I have the media strategy. I do not have the dress. I hit send. The next morning, a reply was waiting. Intrigued, call me. While my mother was finalizing her seating chart of exclusion, I was on a video call with Milan. This is not about revenge, correct? The designer, Isabella, asked, her voice like velvet. Revenge is an ugly emotion. It makes the fabric hang poorly. It's not revenge, I promised. It's reclamation. Good, she said. This I can design for. It started to build piece by piece. My professional skills took over. I was no longer Clara, the sad daughter. I was Clara Vance, the brand strategist. I made a list. Venue must be open, public, breathtaking, and the polar opposite of a lockdown country club. Guests, a new kind of guest list. Message, what is the higher purpose? Media, how do we control the narrative? Liam was my rock. While I was a whirlwind of creative energy, he was the anchor. He handled the real-world logistics. He found a lawyer to review the partnership agreements I was drafting. He researched live streaming platforms. He made me dinner when I'd forget to eat. You're incredible, I told him one night, buried in spreadsheets. My family's house was probably full of flower arrangements by now. No, he said, rubbing my shoulders. You are. I'm just the lucky guy holding the ladder. The secrecy was the hardest part. My phone would buzz. It would be my Aunt Carol. Clara, I haven't heard from you. Are you all right? Your mother is so worried about you. Worried. That was the word she used, not guilty. Worried. I'd text back, just swamped with a huge project at work. I'm fine. You should call your mother. I didn't reply. I was building my purpose. My family was just chasing social validation. They were running around, ensuring their small, insular circle of friends was suitably impressed. I was building something bigger. The guest list was the key. I had my personal list of friends. Maya, my college roommates, a few close colleagues. Liam had his family and friends. But the real guest list, I went through my professional contacts. Public relations directors in London, magazine editors in New York, tech philanthropists in Silicon Valley, influencers who focused on social impact. I began drafting the invitation. It wasn't an invitation to a wedding. It was an invitation to a global broadcast, a launch event. I was assembling an army of witnesses. "Clara," Liam said one night, about a month into our frantic planning, "this is huge. It's brilliant. But what is it for? I mean, beyond us? You said you wanted a message." He was right. It was big and shiny, but it was still, at its core, about me. It was still a reaction to them. And if it was just about me, it wasn't reinvention. It was just a very large, very expensive, "I told you so." It was still, in its own way, revenge. "You're right," I said, a cold dread washing over me. "It's still about them. After all of this, it's still about them." "No," he said gently, "it's not. You just need the final piece. What's the why? Why should the world tune in? What are we giving them?" I thought about all the years I felt small and invisible, all the times I was told to be quiet, to not spoil the mood. I was one of the lucky ones. I had a great job. I had Liam. I had Maya. I could build my own way out. What about the people who couldn't? What about the kids who are told they're too much and have no one to catch them when they fall? "I know," I said, a new clarity washing over me. "I know the why." The why changed everything. It focused all my grief and anger into a single, sharp point of light. The wedding wasn't for me. It was for everyone who ever felt left out. I called Liam from my office the next day. "It's a charity," I said. "A charity?" "Yes, the whole thing. The broadcast, the media, the project. It's not about us. It's a fundraiser for arts and mentorship programs, for kids from underserved communities who are told there isn't a seat for them." He was quiet for a second. "Clara, that's brilliant. Is it? Or is it insane?" "It's brilliantly insane," he said, "and it's perfect. It's not revenge. It's purpose." That's when we named it. We dropped Project Horizon. It was too vague. "Let's call it the Shoreline Vow," I said. "Why shoreline?" "Because we're doing it on the coast, a private beach in Oregon, as far from their world as I can get. And because the shoreline is the edge, it's where the land ends and something bigger and unknown begins. It's about freedom." "The Shoreline Vow," he said, testing the name. "I love it. It sounds hopeful." Now I had a real story to tell. I went back to my contacts, the designers, the planners, the tech companies. I was no longer asking for favors for my personal wedding. I was asking for partners for a global philanthropic event. The response was overwhelming. "Clara, this is a game changer. We're in." "A live-streamed wedding for charity? The optics are incredible. We can donate the satellite bandwidth, no problem." People wanted to be part of something good. My family's world was so small, fighting over napkin colors in a locked room. I was building a stage for the entire world. We set the date. It was a calculated risk. It was the exact same day as Sophie's wedding. "Clara, are you sure?" Liam asked, his face etched with concern. That looks like revenge." "No," I said firmly, "it's not. It's strategy. Their guest list is local. Our guest list is global. They will be in their church, checking their watches while their world gets smaller. We will be on the coast, changing the world. I'm not competing with her day. I am reclaiming my day, the day they tried to steal from me." He nodded slowly. "Okay then, let's reclaim it." The location was a breathtaking private stretch of beach near Cannon Beach. It required permits, security, a massive logistical effort. Liam was a genius, managing all the details I was once told I shouldn't be bothered with. And then, Isabella's package arrived from Milan. It came in a literal wooden crate, 6 feet tall. Maya came over to help me open it while Liam was at work. "My God, Clara," she said, prying open the lid. "This isn't a dress. This is an art installation. We pulled it out. It wasn't a dress. It was starlight. It wasn't white. My mother's world was white. My dress was the deep, shimmering blue-black of a midnight sky. Isabella had hand-stitched it with thousands of tiny, glittering crystals arranged in the patterns of constellations. She calls it the Navigator, I whispered, touching the fabric. It was silk, but it felt like liquid night. She said it was for the woman who learns to navigate by her own stars. I was so used to wearing muted colors, to blending in, to being the shadow. Put it on, Maya said, her voice thick with emotion. Here, in my living room? Right now, Clara Vance, put it on. I slipped out of my clothes and stepped into the dress. The silk was cool against my skin. I turned to look in the small, simple mirror by our front door. I didn't recognize myself, not the me I knew. I didn't see the sad girl. I didn't see the problem daughter. I didn't see the ghost. I saw a queen. The dress didn't hide me. It revealed me. It was powerful. It was beautiful. It was mine. I saw myself clearly for the first time, not forgotten, but reborn. Maya was crying. Clara, oh Clara, your mother is going to despise it. I laughed, a real, genuine laugh. It was the highest compliment she could have given me. Yes, I said, she is. It's not appropriate, Maya said, perfectly mimicking my mother's pinched tone. It's not demure, I added. It's not what people will think. We laughed until we cried. The rest of the plan fell into place like dominoes. The live stream would be hosted on a custom-built website with a prominent donate button. All proceeds would go to the Open Door Foundation. We sent out the press kits to the global media list I had spent a decade building. I wrote the copy myself. This is not a wedding, it is a vow that being seen is a right, not a privilege. A vow that no child should ever be told there is no seat for them. Join Clara Vance and Liam Hayes as they make their vow and help them keep it. The Shoreline Vow. Live. 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I included a single stunning image of the dress, hanging against a black backdrop, glittering like a captured galaxy. I didn't mention my family. I didn't mention my sister. I didn't mention the rejection. This was the lesson Maya had taught me. I would not be the victim. I was not the sister who wasn't invited. I was the Shoreline bride. I was the one telling a new story. I was in control. I hit send on an email that would land in the inboxes of hundreds of media outlets. My hand was shaking. It's done, I told Liam. What if no one cares? I whispered. What if I built this whole thing and no one shows up? What if it's just me on a beach in a fancy dress, shouting at the ocean? Then I'll be there with you, he said, kissing my forehead, shouting right next to you, and I will think you are the most beautiful, courageous woman I have ever seen. He smiled. But Clara, they'll care. You gave them a hell of a story. A week later, the first article dropped. It was in a major online magazine. Headline, "The wedding of the year isn't a wedding, it's a movement." It had begun. The morning of the wedding, I woke before dawn. Our hotel suite had a panoramic view of the Pacific. The sky was a deep, velvety purple. Liam was still asleep beside me. I slipped out of bed and walked onto the balcony. The air was cold and clean, smelling of salt and endless possibility. I thought about my family. Right now, on the East Coast, it was morning. They would be at their house. My mother would be in her silk robe, her face a mask of stressed perfection. Sophie would be surrounded by her bridesmaids, getting her hair done. My father would be pacing, adjusting his tie. They were in their small, perfect, suffocating box. I was on the edge of the continent. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't angry. I felt an incredible sense of peace. For the first time in my life, I felt truly, deeply calm. I was not spoiling the mood. I was creating my own. Maya arrived at 10 a.m. with coffee. "The crew is here," she announced. "Cameras are in position. The satellite truck is humming. The first guests are arriving at the security checkpoint." "The guests?" "Oh yeah, people came, Clara. The editor from that London fashion magazine. She's here. The director of the foundation. He's here. That tech billionaire you invited. He's here. They all wanted to see this for themselves." We had 2 guest lists. The physical one was about 100 people, colleagues, media contacts, and our closest friends. And the virtual one? Maya pulled out her phone. "Our website just went live with the pre-broadcast feed. We have, oh my God, we have 50,000 people waiting in the online lobby." My stomach did a flip. 50,000? And the first donations are already rolling in. Just from people in the waiting room. "It's working," I whispered. "Of course it's working," she said. "Now let's get you into your galaxy." Getting ready was not a family affair. It was just me and Maya. It was peaceful. We played music we loved. We reminisced about college. We didn't mention them once. When I stepped into the navigator, I felt a click, like a final piece of armor locking into place. Maya zipped me up. "Okay," she said. "Don't look in a mirror yet. I want you to see the whole picture." She led me out of the suite and down a private path. The ceremony wasn't on the sand, but on a rocky bluff overlooking the ocean. The event designers had constructed a simple, transparent platform. It looked as though we were about to stand on air. The guests were seated, dressed in elegant, windswept attire. They weren't my mother's friends. They were strangers, and they were all here for me. Liam was waiting. He wasn't at the altar. He was at the beginning of the aisle. "I'm not letting you walk alone," he'd said. "We do this together, side by side." He was in a simple, beautifully cut, dark blue suit. He looked at me, and in his eyes I saw everything. He just saw me. "Hi," he whispered, taking my hand. "Hi," I whispered back. The music began, a single haunting cello. We started to walk, together. As we passed the front row, I heard someone whisper, "That's her, that's Clara Vance, the sister who wasn't invited." I flinched. Liam squeezed my hand. The whisper wasn't malicious. It was part of the story, the mythos we had created. I had to own it. We reached the platform. We were standing before a simple arch of white orchids, with the entire Pacific Ocean as our backdrop. The cameras were there, small and discreet, but they were on. The officiant, a wonderful woman who was a dear friend of Liam's, began to speak. I looked out at the vast expanse of water. "They're watching," Liam whispered to me, so low no one else could hear. I knew who he meant. They were, the whole world, and my family. It was 3 p.m. in Oregon. It was 6 p.m. back east. Sophie's reception would be starting. My mother would be checking her makeup, and someone at that wedding, a cousin, a friend, would be looking at their phone. They would all be looking. I turned my head and smiled at Liam. "Let them," I whispered back. We said our vows. We hadn't written them down. We just spoke. "Liam," I said, my voice trembling slightly. For a long time, I felt like I was invisible. I felt like a shadow. And then I met you, and you didn't just see me. You made me feel real. You are my home. He held my hands tightly. "Clara, I don't need a big stage to see you. I would have seen you in a pitch-black room. I'm just so unbelievably proud to be standing next to you. I love you." We kissed. The ocean seemed to roar its approval behind us. The guests rose to their feet and applauded. A man in the front row, the tech billionaire, held up his phone. "It's trending!" he shouted. #1 worldwide hashtag, Shoreline Vow. It was done. We were married. The donation ticker appeared on the giant, elegant screens we had set up for the reception. The moment we kissed, the moment the hashtag trended, the number started to climb. $50,000, $100,000, $250,000. People were cheering. They were dancing and drinking champagne and eating incredible food. But they were all watching the numbers rise. This wasn't just a wedding reception. It was a telethon. It was a celebration with a purpose. Maya found me. She was holding my personal phone, which I had left in her purse. "It's buzzing off the hook, Clara," she said, her face serious. It's really buzzing." I looked at the screen. 37 missed calls. From Mom, from Dad, from Sophie. The party was in full swing. The music was vibrant. The sun was setting over the ocean, painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples. The donation ticker had just passed $800,000, and I was standing near a speaker, holding my phone. The texts were arriving faster than I could read them. I opened my mother's first. "Mom, Clara? What is this?" "Mom, your Aunt Carol just called me. She says you are all over the internet." "Mom, what is the meaning of this? You are doing this on Sophie's wedding day?" "Mom, this is a disgrace. You are embarrassing this family. Your father is furious. He said you've lost your mind." "Mom, call me, now." "Mom, how could you do this to your sister? You are a selfish, cruel child." "Mom, pick up the phone." "Mom, pick up the phone, Clara." "Mom, your father's law partners are here. They are seeing this. You are ruining us." I read the words: embarrassing, disgrace, selfish, cruel. The same words she had weaponized against me my whole life. The words that used to shatter me. I looked at them, and I felt nothing. It was the strangest sensation. It was like reading a language I once spoke fluently but had long since forgotten. The words had no power. They were just letters on a screen. Liam came up behind me and put his hands on my arms. "Are you okay?" I turned and showed him the phone. He read the texts, his face hardening. "Wow," he said softly. "Look," I said, and clicked on the next name. Sophie. Sophie. Clara? Sophie. "My friends are all sending me links. Is this some kind of sick joke?" Sophie. "It's my wedding day. Why are you doing this to me?" Sophie. "You couldn't just let me have my one day." Sophie. "Mom is locked in the bathroom crying. You made her cry." Sophie. "This is payback, isn't it?" I stared at that last line. This is payback, isn't it? They saw the whole world watching. They saw the charity, they saw the headlines, and all they could see was a reflection of themselves. They thought this was about them. And then my father. One single text. "Dad. Clara, please call your mother. She's very upset." Of course, that was my father. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "What is going on?" Just, "Please manage your mother's emotions for me." My entire life, I had craved their approval. I had cried for it, worked for it, contorted myself for it. Now, they were all desperately blowing up my phone, begging for my attention, and I had no desire to give it to them. I thought this moment would feel triumphant, a sweet, satisfying gotcha moment. It didn't. It didn't feel like revenge. It just felt quiet. It felt like I had moved on. I had built a new home on a different coast with a new family, and they were still trapped in their old, tiny room, screaming at a door that I had already closed and locked. I took a deep breath of the cool, salt air. "What are you going to do?" Liam asked gently. I looked at Sophie's last text. "This is payback, isn't it?" My fingers moved over the screen. I typed a single reply. I sent it as a group message to all three of them, my mother, my father, and my sister. "No, This is peace. I hit send. Then, I did something I had never had the strength to do before. I blocked their numbers. My mother, my father, my sister, block, block, block. I turned to Liam. It's done. He looked at me, really looked at me, and saw the change. Are you? I'm free, I said. Just then, the music stopped. The director of the foundation, a man I admired deeply, was on the small stage. Excuse me, everyone, he said, tapping the microphone. I have an announcement. We just received a call. He looked straight at me, his eyes glistening with tears. A donation, a single donation from the tech CEO who is here with us tonight. He just matched every dollar raised so far. We have just crossed $2 million. The crowd erupted in a massive roar. Liam grabbed me, lifted me off my feet, and spun me around. I was crying and laughing at the same time. This wasn't revenge. This was not about them. This was about this. This was about $2 million for kids who needed a chance. This was about the good I could create. This was my story. I glanced at my phone. The screen was black. It was quiet. For the first time in my life, my world was filled with loud, joyous noise, and my phone was finally blessedly silent. The days following the wedding were a whirlwind. We were everywhere. The wedding that redefined philanthropy. From rejection to reclamation, how one woman rewrote her narrative. The shoreline vow, 2 million and counting. Reporters all wanted to talk to me. They all wanted the salacious details. Clara, can you tell us exactly what your family did? One reporter asked, shoving a microphone in my face as we walked through the airport. This project isn't about my past, I said, my voice steady, Liam's hand holding mine. It's about the future of the children we're helping. If you want to talk about my family, let's talk about the global family that came together to raise this money. I refused to give them the drama. I refused to play the victim in their story. When they asked, "But why did your family not invite you?" I'd reply, "I'm not here to talk about who wasn't there. I'm here to talk about the thousands of people who showed up." I stuck to the message. I stuck to the purpose. The fund hit 2.5 million, then 3 million. The story had outgrown the wedding. It had become a symbol. About a week later, Maya sent me a link, my mother's Facebook page. She must have unblocked me, or maybe she just made the post public for maximum effect. It was a long, rambling post, accompanied by a picture of Sophie and me as small children. "As a mother, you always do your best," it began, "but sometimes you make mistakes. My heart has been broken this week, seeing the narrative that has been spun about my family. We are not perfect, but we love each other fiercely." She went on, "I am so incredibly proud of my daughter Clara and the amazing work she has done. Her shoreline vow is an inspiration. We should have celebrated her all along, and for our part in her pain, we are truly sorry. We hope that in time she can find it in her heart to forgive us so we can be a family again." I read the entire thing. It was a masterclass in public relations. It was my mother, realizing her friends at the country club were looking at her sideways and scrambling to get back on the right side of the story. It was the most dishonest apology I had ever read. I closed the browser. I didn't respond. I didn't like it. I didn't comment. To engage at all, even with anger, would be to give it power. It didn't matter. She wasn't apologizing to me. She was apologizing to her audience. The last call came 2 weeks later. I was in our apartment. Liam was making coffee. It was a normal Sunday. An unfamiliar number flashed on my screen. I answered. "Clara?" It was Sophie. Her voice was small and tentative. I hadn't heard it in months. I had blocked her number, so this must have been a new phone. I stayed quiet. Clara, please, don't hang up. I just wanted to say, your wedding was beautiful. I watched the stream. Afterwards, I watched the whole thing. I waited. Mom's a mess, she said. That's not my problem, Sophie, I said. My voice wasn't cold. It was just a statement of fact. I know, she's furious you haven't responded to her post. I'm not going to, I said simply. There was a long silence. I could hear her breathing. You really did it, she whispered. All those news stories. The money. She paused. You changed the whole story, Clara. I thought about that, looking out my apartment window at the city below. No, Sophie, I said. I didn't change the story. I just finally told the truth. She started to cry, soft, sad little sobs. I'm sorry, she whispered. I was so afraid of Mom. I always have been. I know, I said, and I did. Can we see you? She asked. I thought about it. I thought about the house with the white columns, the holiday photos, the whispers. No, I said, not now. Maybe someday, but not now. I'm busy. I have to go. Okay, she said, her voice full of defeat. Okay, Clara, I get it. I hung up the phone. I felt a pang of sadness for her, for the girl who was still trapped in that house. But I wasn't. Liam handed me a mug of coffee. Who was that? My sister, I said. Are you okay? I smiled, a real easy smile. I am. I really am. Later that day, we went for a walk. We lived near a small rocky beach. I took off my shoes and walked at the edge of the water, the cold waves washing over my feet. I thought about my name, Clara Vance. For so long, that name was a story written by someone else, a story of a sad, difficult, morose girl. Now my name was mine. The tide came in, erasing my footprints in the wet sand. I watched them disappear. The sand would shift. The ocean would change. But I finally knew who I was. My name was my own, and I was free.